Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Phil Show. My name is Phil McGraw. Okay, wrong show. Welcome, everybody, to the C+J Speedway Review. My name is Chris Burns. I am the Jabroni and the Loki and Jabroni Show, live streaming every Tuesday night, with the exception of last week. Live on Facebook. You can also find us on audio-only formats like iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio every Wednesday, or whenever you want. We're on-demand audio. Sitting across the screen from me in Peabody, Massachusetts, is the man that makes James Bond look like a hobo every time he gets in a suit. His name is Corey Huffnagel. Corey, how you doing tonight?
Hello, Chris. I'm doing pretty well. You could just pretty much say the wedding was really good on Sunday. And I had to tell you, the James Bond look, I looked pretty sexy in it. The only thing is I really needed a BMW. But no, other than that, congratulations to Josh and Ellen. They are celebrating their honeymoon as we speak. And the bad news is, folks, I didn't get to do that dance move from Mr. Bean's holiday. But actually, a funny story before we get into the show. So I ended up requesting a song from Tupac, and I told one of the DJs to play it. So it was funny because, like, when the reception was over, he told me, he said, "Oh, thanks for putting on the song, whatever. It was really fun, but like the only thing was I had to buy the song and I had to make sure it was edited." And I thought, weird. I thought you guys already had all those songs lined up. I didn't know you had to buy one, but no, the wedding was great. I had a lot of fun and it's a fun time.
Good deal. A DJ's work is never done. We find that out when Loki does his bit every Saturday night and now Friday nights at a new location. If you're in Norwich, Connecticut, Maggie's is the place to be to catch Loki do his thing with the karaoke DJ business. On to some pressing news. It was an opinion column that I posted on the C+J Speedway Review Facebook page. Kind of wanted to get your feel on it. As most people know, there's an MLB network. There's an NFL network. If you're an online subscriber like me, there's a WWE network, which you can find at www.lokiandjabroni.com/wrestling for $9.99 a month. I am a new subscriber, so I got WrestleMania for free. You'll hear all about that Tuesday night. There's talks now amongst people that there should be a NASCAR network where all week you can get on demand every particular series, whether it's the West, whether it's the Canadian series, the Mexican series. I think it's a great idea. A subscriber network modeled after, say, the WWE network, online content, streaming on demand, unlike the MLB network, which has programming through the day and then a baseball game, or the NFL network, which is programming through the day and a selected game of the week. Corey, what do you think about this? Do you think there should be a NASCAR network?
I really think there should, because you're pretty much right. We have an MLB network, we have NFL, we have NBA and NHL, and I really think it's about time. But like, the only thing I'm kind of thinking about is, okay, what are we going to do about the networks? Because remember, Fox and NBC, do the Cup, Xfinity, and the truck races. Well, mostly the truck is FS1, and sometimes Fox, and then NBCSN usually covers like the tape delays of the K&N Pro Series, the modifieds and whatnot. So I would say that if there was a NASCAR network, we'd have to make sure that the Pro Series and the modifieds would all be live, at a standstill time. And then of course, with the Cup races and the Xfinity and the truck races, they would pretty much be on public network. And then let's say like if anybody misses it, they'll have like a rerun, like I'd say like the day after or maybe 2 days after, like whatsoever. But yeah, I'd probably say like, NASCAR, if you're watching this right now, come up with some ideas with that. I'm really interested on this.
Well, here's where I'm going to say take the model from probably one of the greatest entrepreneurs in this country right now. Love him or hate him, it's Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
WrestleMania was this past Sunday. And you had the pay-per-view markets like DirecTV, On Demand, whatever your cable service has as a pay-per-view provider. But you also had the WWE network. Now, I'm not saying NASCAR should take the business away from Fox or NBC or anybody else. I'm saying that you could have this alternate system where, as my other partner, Mike, clearly said when he walked through the door, I said, "Hey, did you catch this particular match?" Because he showed up late. He said, "No, I watched it on the network. I have the network on my phone. I had it on my dashboard." Not that I'm condoning watching the WWE network and driving, but He got to see he got to hear what's going on. When he got a chance to look up on a straightaway, he could see what's going on. So he didn't miss a beat. It's a streaming network. Now, take, for example, you're a guy who unfortunately has a boss that hates you and makes you work on Sundays, but you know that the race is this Sunday, much like
Yeah.
Bristol is going to be. And we'll talk about Bristol in just a little bit. You can't see it, but you
Right.
have an opportunity. Whereas if you don't have the NASCAR link on your phone to listen to it on PRN or MRN, you
Hmm.
have the opportunity to sit in an office or on your lunch or whatever, have that little screen in front of you on your gimmick phone and watch the race. You're a subscriber. It's $9.99 a month or whatever the model is going to be if it ever happens. I think it's a fantastic idea, especially if you're someone who likes to watch the young guys come up on the Wheel and West series, or I don't remember. It was Bush North back then. What do they call the
Yeah.
local series here?
Right now it's K&M Pro Series, West and East, and then of course Whalen modifieds and so forth.
Right. So if you're a guy who loves that local short track that is NASCAR sponsored, and you didn't get to go out to see the Saturday night fireworks or the Friday night showdown or the icebreaker that every track has
Yeah.
every year, it's streaming on demand for you. Much like if you missed WrestleMania this week, you could watch it on your WWE network, full blown, all 7,432 hours of it. That's the longest Sunday ever in the history of my life. 3.5 hours of Texas race.
So anyways, I think we just lost Chris there for just
To
one
happen.
second. Oh,
That's all right.
there we go. I think we
We
got him
got,
back.
yeah, I'm
Uh,
right here.
all right, all right. I thought we lose you there for a second.
Oh, I thought I lost you there for a second, so I just kept talking.
Yeah.
It's a model that NASCAR can definitely look at. They really set the tone for the internet generation with NASCAR.com. They were one of the first all-encompassing websites. It wasn't like Yankees.com or Red Sox.com. NASCAR just went, let's throw them all together, NASCAR.com, and then the drivers had their websites intermittently here and there.
Right.
Those are separate. NASCAR was the first to have an app where you could actively listen,
Yep.
mostly for free, especially back when Sprint was a sponsor. If you had a Sprint phone like I do, you had access to all the scanners,
Yep.
you had access to the MRN, you had access to live in car camera, which now, because Sprint is no longer the sponsor, I get just the PRN.
Right.
I don't get the scanners, but I do get live in car camera. You also don't get some of the telemetry and all of that mess unless you pay, strangely enough, guys, $9.99 a month, which I'm actually considering doing, but I'm already shelling out money for the WWE network, and I'm off on Sundays, so I get to see the races.
Yeah.
I think it's I like, let us be the first two guys, other than the opinion column, that in. Any further thoughts from you, my friend?
Well, I probably say it's a great idea, and actually, you think about it. Let's say like if there is a NASCAR network, like not only it should cover the K&N Pro Series, but also it should cover the Pinty Series, which is in Canada, and then of course the Corona Mexico Series, I think, which is in like Mexico, and not to mention the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, which is based out in Europe. And even though right now ESPN is covering Formula One races, around the world and so forth, and as we speak. But speaking of Whelen Euro series or whatever, I don't know if you heard this one, but 2000 NASCAR champion and 1991 92 Xfinity champion Bobby Labonte is going to be coming out of retirement, and he's going to be running a full schedule for the Whelen Euro Series in 2018. And they just showed a picture on the NASCAR Race Hub. I think it was on like Monday or Tuesday. It showed him like packing. It had his passport and everything. So, Bobby, if you're watching this right now on YouTube or so forth, I just want to wish you the best of luck and go out there and win some races, and hopefully you can win a championship in 2018.
Oh, without question. I always thought that Bobby Labonte retired just a little bit too early. I
Yeah.
think he had more juice in him, but a lot of the teams were looking for young and hungry, whereas Bobby Labonte was not exactly young, but he was still hungry. He was very competitive. So to have Bobby Labonte here in 2018 go to the Euro Series, and I think he's going to teach those boys a little something about racing. I'm thrilled. I think it's great. I have a friend who was a huge Bobby Labonte fan, and when Bobby retired, he just kind of fell to the wayside. He's like, I pick up a race here and there, and he texts me when something. Oh, this Bobby Labonte fans, it's also good for racing in general because the more
Yeah.
times you can have someone who is a very clean driver. I don't think there were many Bobby Labonte inspired wrecks, if you will. I don't want to say causing wrecks, but you never really saw Bobby Labonte cause trouble. You saw him
Right.
get into trouble that was caused by someone else. But Bobby Labonte was one of the cleanest, nicest, and classiest drivers ever to strap into an Xfinity series, not even Xfinity series, but a Cup Series car. He was just
Yeah.
that good. Him and his brother together were just dangerous whenever you saw them. I don't mean dangerous like Danica Patrick, where she's going to wreck everything but the flag stand. I'm
No.
talking about dangerous where if you saw that green 18 in your window, you knew you were in for a fight. Much like
Oh, yeah.
Terry in any car he drove. Terry Labonte was going to give you the fight of your life to get to the checkered flag. And again, like you said, it's great to have Bobby Labonte racing. Again, this would be a perfect time for a NASCAR network so you could watch the NASCAR Euro Series and see Bobby Labonte racing week after week.
And not to mention, Bobby's going to be the first American to run full time in that series. And it's actually kind of funny because last year he made his Whelen Euro Series a year ago at Brands Hatch in England. So what the Whelen Euro Series is? So it's a 6 race schedule, I want to say, and it's usually 2 races per weekend. So yeah, all I can just say is, Bobby Labonte, I think he's gonna do great, and hopefully he can win races, maybe a championship this year.
Absolutely. Now, as we usually do this season, every single week, I'm going to ask Corey. Corey, any
Yo,
news, notes, and penalties other than the one given to Chase Elliott that you want to talk about before we break down Texas?
well, the big penalty today came out. I want to say either yesterday or today. I believe today is the 11th, right?
All day, no, 12th, all day long.
Okay, so yesterday NASCAR announced that Chase Elliott was given an L1 penalty for, I believe, the second time this season. The team was found violated section 20.4.8.1, dealing with the rear window support. So, kind of, the penalty that Kevin Harvick got at Las Vegas this
Right.
year. So, pretty much says that. Crew Chief Alan Gustafson was fined $50,000 and he's suspended for the next 2 races. The team was also lost 20 owner points and 20 driver points. And Kenny Francis is going to be the interim crew chief for the next 2 races.
Not a bad choice as a backup, Kenny Francis. He's got a lot of wins under his belt, especially I believe it was with Casey Kane back in the day with the number 9 team. On the Chase Elliott penalty, and you did mention Harvick in Las Vegas, there's got to be something wrong, and we're going to talk a lot about the air guns coming up. We're going to talk a lot about the air guns. When you have that rear window, and again, these cars gets lighter and lighter every year. It's not like that heavy, bulky car that the Wallaces and the Earnhardts, and if you want to go even further back, that the Yarboroughs and the Pettys drove year after year. The cars are lighter, they're faster, they're definitely safer. We talked about that, and we're going to talk more about that when we talk about the Ryan Newman hit later on. But when you lighten the car so much and you use much lighter material, there is going to be some give somewhere. Now that we have 2 drivers, Harvick and Elliott, who have got this penalty for that rear window bracket, it's time for NASCAR to look into sturdying that up. Each team should look into sturdying that up because there were some people when Harvick got the penalty said, well, this team did it, but only Harvick got bent. Why? Because he won the race and he's the first car through the inspection line. They always take the winner, guys. So if Kyle Busch got this penalty this past week, it would be no surprise because the winner is the first one at Tech. But having said that, Chase Elliott's not exactly lighting the world on fire. So someone had to rat him out and say, hey, the number 9 right rear window is bowing in the wind, just like Kevin's did. Is this a case of nanny boo boo? We're gonna rat somebody out so maybe we can move ahead, or is this NASCAR actually looking at the cars in Tech and saying, "Okay, Chase, your window bracket was busted"?
Well, I pretty much say that I'd say that NASCAR is taking a really hard look, like, whenever like everybody like adjusts on the cars, because just remember, like, you go to that Hawkeye inspection station and the officials see something that they don't like, they're going to tell you, okay, bring it back, fix it, come through the line again, and then we'll just see what happens. And not
And you're
only
ta-
that,
and you're talking pre-race text when they're
yeah,
going through the line.
yeah,
Okay.
and not only that, like, we also saw in qualifying at Atlanta, Martin Truex Jr. failed the Hawkeye station 3 times, and as a result, the car chief gets ejected for the weekend. And NASCAR is pretty much telling this for an example. Okay, guys, if you adjust something on the car and we find something that we don't like, chances are we're going to eject your car chief for the weekend, and we're going to give you penalties during the week. Like, we don't care if it's either an L1 penalty or L2 or other than that and so forth. But just take a look at what happened with Logano last year at Richmond. He ends up winning, and then of course one of the officials pointed something at the car that they didn't like. So they broke it down at the R&D center, and they found something on the rear suspension. Then next thing you know, boom, Logano gets a big penalty. Not only he gets his playoff chances eliminated, but pretty much like they just struggled throughout the whole entire season. So you go to Chase Elliott, and now that he's only had like 2 L1 penalties, and I think he's only lost like a total of like 48 points, I'm just thinking to myself, it's going to be kind of like Logano, where, they just can't like recover because, with so many penalties and crew chief suspensions and whatnot. But,
Well, the
I'd probably
difference.
say that,
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I mean, I probably say that, now, like, let's say, like, if somebody got an L1 penalty and, let's say, like, if somebody wins the championship and, the car gets an L1 penalty, you know, I would say that, not only they should just either strip the championship away, or they should probably, find the crew chief, maybe suspend him like the next year going into the season. I don't know.
I'm not sure, and I dare say that if that happened this November at Homestead in any of the 3 series, it would be. And I know I don't like to cuss on this show, but I'm going to let one slip. That would be a clusterfuck from hell.
Yeah.
Only because you've run the race, you set the parameters. Let's, for the sake of argument's sake, Kyle Busch finishes in first place, whether it's he wins the race or he's first in points, then he is your 2018 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion. Then they go through tech. Now they've had the celebration. Everybody's throwing champagne in the air and beer and hookers and whatever. And they get to tech and they say, oh, wow, your window bracket's this. You're 2 inches low here. Yeah, we're going to have to. How are you going to strip the championship? And this is where I think the MLB, NBA, NFL, etc., so forth, they get it right where NASCAR fiddle farts around and changes the rules as they get a wild hair across their hind end. Is that
Right.
you gotta have the same rules all the time. In 30 years of watching racing, I've sat through seasons where they change a rule halfway through, or they change a rule 6 races through, or with
Yeah.
6 races to go, here's a rule change. You can't do that. Give us the pool that we are allowed to swim in. We're to make this happen. Now, if you're caught cheating, absolutely, you should be penalized. But come Homestead, I think every car should go through tech twice pre-race.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the race, what is. Don't
Yeah.
tech the cars after the race. I'm not that doesn't advocate cheating. And I think that, and I don't know how it works. I'd have to call upon some NASCAR friends.
Yeah.
I think there should be 2 officials in every garage watching these guys like a hawk as they work on those cars, so it alleviates the possibility of cheating, so that come Homestead, if that were the case, in Homestead, every garage, whether you're in the top 4 or you're one of the other 32 drivers, you have to be watched like a hawk.
Right.
So we can not have this conversation come November where a couple days after the race, we're doing what we do and say, oh, well, so-and-so won the championship, car failed tech.
Right.
What do you do then? Really, seriously, what do you do then? It would be like finding out, the Red Sox are on a tear right now. And if the Red Sox won the World Series and Red Sox Nation is throwing up the champagne and the beer and the confetti and the hookers, and then you find out that two guys had cork bats, one guy was doctoring the ball with a nail file to get 3 inches more drop on the curveball, etc., so forth, then what do you do? You can't necessarily take the celebration and the trophy and all the gimmickry that you've done with the commissioner coming out and saying, "Here's your trophy. Have a good day." You can't do that.
No.
So, I mean, it's a really fine line that you walk on, and I don't want to see a day where that ever happens. I like to believe that all of these teams, with the exception of the 48, plays by the rules. Yes, I'm bringing in my personal politics. So what? We'll talk about Jimmy Johnson in a bit. I'm ready to hit the panic button on the 48. We'll talk about that when we talk about Texas.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Jimmy Johnson fan, and my hand is right here. Chase Elliott hasn't won a race yet. Chase Elliott is due to win a race. I feel it in my heart. However, this penalty does not hurt him as badly as everybody thinks.
I'd say so, but we'll just have to see what happens this year, and see where it all goes.
All right. Well, before we go any further, I want to remind you that Corey Huffnagel does a great thing, which is why we're doing Thursdays throughout the next couple weeks. And props to you, my friend. I don't mind taking my Thursday night out, even though I rush home an hour away from where I live from work to get here to make sure I'm here with you guys.
Yeah.
And, big ups to you, my friend. So let's talk about Texas Motor Speedway, the My Bariatric Solutions 300. I want to remind you guys of our picks from last week in the Xfinity Series. I had Kevin Harvick winning the race, and I had Ryan Preece as my sleeper. Corey had Christopher Bell winning the race, and Ryan Preece as his sleeper. And as you all know by now, Ryan Blaney was the far and away dominant man of the hour and won the race. You watched the race as far as I know. Tell me what you saw.
So, not really big happened in the race on Saturday. Besides the fact that Ryan Blaney had a dominant win in the Xfinity race on Saturday, led the race from start to finish. The 22 team led 132 out of the races, 200 laps. Blaney ended up winning stage 1. Brandon Jones with the pit strategy ended up winning stage 2. So, other than that, there weren't a lot of big crashes. There was some spin outs, and in fact, there was one driver that said "Oh, if he does that again, I'm going after him," blah blah blah, and so forth. But no, other than that, Ryan Blaney, is such a clean driver, and he's probably one of the best drivers as there is right now for Team Penske. And the one great thing I really like about him is not only he does the Polish victory lap and so forth, but when he got out of his car, he got the checker flag. He gave it to a young race fan that was in the grandstands and so forth. And actually, it's funny because he did that also last year at Dover when he won the race and gave it to a young race fan as well. But no, but other than that, it was a great race. I really thought that Christopher Bell had him in his sights, but again, runner-up finish for that 20 team, and I just keep saying all along, I really think that Bell's going to win sometime soon. It's just a matter of when at this point.
Right, and Christopher Bell, for what it's worth, has not had too much disappointment this season. I'm sure that team, that entire 20 team, is thinking, when's going to be our time? Much like the 18 on the Cup Series, you're thinking, when's going to be our time, Lord? I'm sure they're on their knees every Saturday going, okay, dear Jesus, we love you so much. Can you please get us to victory lane? And their hard work is paying off because they're having much better finishes than I think is showing on here, much like Kyle Busch. We'll talk about him just in a little bit. But I want to give a special shout out to a young race fan. Her name is Sarah Azarju. She picked Ryan Blaney at the Daytona 500 as her driver on the Cup Series. I don't think she understands that there's 743 series that NASCAR runs on, but to have Ryan Blaney win a race, Sarah, you made a good pick. I told you from the beginning that Ryan Blaney was a good choice, especially because you're young, he's young, etc., so forth. And she chose him because he was cute. So, doesn't matter why you pick your driver. Thank you for picking Ryan Blaney. And Sarah, I'm going to share this with your dad so you can watch this at another time. So I'll break down real quick the top 10 and the notables, and then we're going to get to our happy and sads.
Yep.
Obviously, Ryan Blaney comes home in first, 130-some laps led, just a dominating performance. But right behind him was Christopher Bell in second with a, what was it, 10 laps led? Didn't lead a whole lot during their race. Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah. Not a lot of laps for the 21 team or whoever it was.
Right. Well, Daniel Hemrick's right behind them in third. Cole Custer fourth. Ryan Preece, we mentioned him before, in fifth. Matt Tifft sixth. Jamie McMurray seventh. Elliott Sadler eighth. Austin Cindric ninth. And Spencer Gallagher rounds out the top 10. Other notables: Chase Briscoe in 11th. Ryan Truex 13th. An unfortunate 19th for Kevin Harvick, although I don't think he was giving it his all. I did watch a replay of the race. Didn't
Yeah.
look all that interested. But going down the list, Kaz Grala 26th. Brandon Jones, who won the second stage, 33rd, and Justin Allgaier, a championship contender on any other day, 35th. Who are you happy with, and who was your disappointment?
So my happy moment on Saturday would definitely have to be the 21 of Daniel Hemrick. Even though he started in the way back in 35th, comes home third. He led a couple laps, and I look at the RCR team this year, and not to mention his teammate Matt Tifft ended up coming home sixth, and Ty Dillon coming home 12th. I really think that Hemrick. I think he's going to be a one to watch later on this season, and I really think that that 21 team is going to win races this year, and not to mention. Christopher Bell, Daniel Hemrick, Cole Custer, and Ryan Preece are all going to be running for the Xfinity Dash for Cash Saturday at Bristol, which we'll explain that one later on. But but other than that, my disappointment would definitely have to be Justin Allgaier. Could have had a great car, to win the race, and I really thought that this was going to be a driver that was going to contend for the win. Unfortunately, engine problems took him out of contention. Something had to do with the radiator or so forth, but yeah.
Okay. Well, as far as my disappointment, I'll start with that. I'm definitely going to mirror you. Justin Allgaier, championship contender, did not have a fantastic race. Troubles for him. This is a guy that last year was right in the championship hunt, and you expect better from him, much
Yeah.
like, a lot of these guys that we talk about week in and week out. I'm going to throw the second shout out to Sarah. I'm going to give my tip of the hat, my happy moment, to Ryan Blaney. I don't think that anybody who follows the Xfinity Series that much, I know we all looked at the Bells and the Custers and the Preaces, but I don't think anybody saw Ryan Blaney doing what he did Saturday to win that race. So that's going to be my happy guy is Ryan Blaney in the My Bariatric Solutions 300 at Texas Motor Speedway. The kid ran a hell of a race.
Yeah.
And now, gentlemen and ladies watching this show, for the first time this season, we give to you the Xfinity Series point standings, which we will do every week from now until the end of the season, because it is time. Now is the time where things are starting to get a little concrete. There's going to be some movement. It's not like going from Daytona to the next race to the next race. The picture's starting to get clear. So your Xfinity standings through Texas is Elliott Sadler leads with 228 points. Tyler Reddick is second with 217. Christopher Bell 208 at third. Daniel Hemrick fourth at 203. Justin Allgaier had a bit of a drop, but he's in fifth now with 196. Cole Custer is in sixth with 181. Ryan Truex seventh with 179. Spencer Gallagher surprisingly at eighth with 174. Matt Tifft ninth, 165. And Brandon Jones rounds out the top 10 at 162. Notables in these standings is Kaz Grala 13th with 130. Michael Annett, who did really well last season, 110 and 14th. Austin Cindric is not lighting the world on fire, 16th, 99 points. And going down the list, Ryan Preece, 22nd, 69 points. I have to mention I don't want to say an honorable mention because it's kind of not honorable. John Hunter Nemechek, 31st with 45 points. Now, I know he's not running for a championship, but when JHN gets out on the racetrack, I expect big things from him. He's got the bloodline. He's got the talent. We all know it. But is there ever going to be a breakout moment for this kid? Because I feel like every time he gets so close, he falls so far back.
I think so. I mean, he's only running like a part-time schedule this year in the 42 car, and you go back to California a couple weeks ago, had a great start. He was running really good most of the day until he had a tire failure, which pretty much it wasn't really like his own doing and so forth. But I really think like once this kid figures it out, like in the 42 car in the Xfinity series, I really think you're going to see him run up front a lot more than what we saw in the last two races.
Okay, fair enough. When it comes down to it, and I want to bring John Hunter Nemechek back into the conversation before we go to the Cup Series. Um, we all have watched him. If you're a fan of the show, we've talked about him.
Yeah.
We're waiting for him to break that glass ceiling. Yes, he's won some races on the truck division. Yes, he runs hard every single week, but it just seems like he is, and I don't want to disparage anybody on the Cup Series, but he seems to have Chris Buescher luck.
Yeah.
You go back to that Pocono race, what was it, a year ago? And
I believe it was 2 years ago.
You are correct.
Yep.
When Chris Buescher wins that race in a rain delay, he did have a strong car, underfunded team.
Yeah.
Would he, if that race had continued, won that race? We will never know. Why? Because we didn't get to run the entire race. But Chris Buescher got his NASCAR Cup Series win. He's in the record books. He is up there with guys like Kyle Petty and Lake Speed as, well, you won a race. Derek Cope, well, you won a race. And I'll bring up Chris Buescher again later on, I hope. But I don't want John Hunter Nemechek to become the next Chris Buescher, Kyle Petty, Lake Speed. And that's really where I'm going to end that conversation on my end.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move ahead. Sunday was not just wedding day. It was the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. And I want to remind you guys who we picked. Going down Corey's list, Corey's lock was Kevin Harvick. His sleeper was Jimmy Johnson. His hopeful was the 13 of Ty Dillon. We will talk about all of them. My lock was Kevin Harvick. My sleeper was Ryan Blaney. My hopeful was Chase Elliott. Boy, were we wrong with the exception of Harvick, and we'll go into that in a minute. Kyle Busch finally scores his first victory of the year at Texas. Pretty good outing. Despite the strong car of the four, he held Kevin off very well in those closing laps where you watched the four team. That Stewart-Haas team is on fire right now.
Yeah.
Anybody who sleeps on this team, you're ridiculous. Just walk away from NASCAR forever. Go watch tennis. Stewart-Haas is on fire, and to watch that four go through losing a lap because of a penalty, losing a lap because of this, losing a lap because of that, battling back and finishing that race as close as he did. Kyle Busch did a masterful job, and I don't like giving Kyle Busch a lot of credit. Kyle Busch did a masterful job of holding off that four car to get his win, and it hurts me to say it, a deserved win at that.
Yeah. And you go to and you think about it, he's been finishing in the top three the last few races. So I pretty much said to myself, he's going to win a race sometime soon. It's only a matter of when. And you look at Texas. I mean, he's won there a couple times before, and he hit his marks on Sunday. Yeah, he held off the four, and I probably say now, not only the Stewart-Haas guys are going to be a one to watch on the mile and a half, but I really think the Joe Gibbs guys are also going to be in that mix as well, because not only Kyle Busch ended up winning the race, but his teammate didn't finish too far behind, with Eric Jones finishing in fourth. So, But, you look at Harvick, I mean, I still think he's going to be the one to watch this season. And, whether if he finishes second or not, I think this is going to be a team that I think is going to be a one to watch in the playoffs.
Oh, without question. And you can never count out Kyle Busch. To see Eric Jones, and Eric Jones led 64 laps of that race.
Yeah.
That's not a joke, people. This kid is for real. And we talked about it last year when he was doing the full-time Xfinity run. This is going to be a kid to watch.
Yeah.
So one of the things I took away from this race, and I'm going to bring it up when we talk about happies and sad, is how many of the big-time, big-name, merchandise selling top 10 running. I'm starting to sound like Ric Flair here. The merchandise selling, top running crew. You know, how many of the big names finished in the not only the bottom half of the field, let's call it the bottom third
Yeah.
of the field. Terrible run for a lot of guys, and I don't want to mention their names because there's a little secret prize I got for you when we go to happies and sads. But um, what did you take away from this race as far as I know we just talked about Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, but there's a lot of young names that are near the top of the list that really proved themselves this weekend that I think you're going to have something to say about.
So I probably say going back to this past weekend, not only we saw Kyle Busch ended up winning the race, and it pretty much goes as a statement that he's going to be a one to watch this season. By the time we get to the playoffs in the fall, but you talk about the big names that fell out of the race. Whether if it was either a tire failure or getting caught up in that multi-car wreck and so forth. But I'd probably say that both Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr. took one of the biggest hard hits at Texas, and looking on the in-car camera, like you're going down like into the corner, like thinking that okay, like you're gonna make your car stick, but then once that tire pops out and then your car is like going straight towards the wall, there's like literally like nothing you can do but just like hang on and hopefully like it's not a hard hit, but like once that car hits the wall and the fact that the safer barrier just holds that car from like having a hard impact, that just goes to show you that NASCAR does a really great job when it comes to safety, and it really does, and they do a really good job like when it comes to protecting drivers and so forth. You go to the multi-car wreck, and I actually saw this like once this week, and what happened was Denny was trying to make a pass on Almirola, and from what I saw, the 10 car came down, the 11 car tried to back out, but the next thing you know, not only it gets to 10, but gets a lot of other drivers like Jimmy Johnson and Suarez and anybody else and so forth. But the one big factor that I really think that this is probably the most important topic to talk about would have to be the air guns. Because if you saw the
Oh, good granny.
because if you saw the race this past weekend, you could pretty much tell that some drivers were voicing their opinions on the pit guns, including Kevin Harvick as well. And he pretty much said it best. He said, like, these pit guns, they're supposed to be efficient, they're supposed to be fast, and I don't know what NASCAR is doing, but they really need to like step up on the pit guns. Now, I actually have a little bit of a conspiracy on this. So
Oh,
I would say that the reason why NASCAR is catching these teams and listing them as a safety violation, because of the loose wheel, loose lug nut, and whatnot. I really think, and this is my opinion, I think that it's because of the air gun, and I would say that they're not tightening the lug nuts tight enough.
I
That's
can
what
agree
I
with
that's
that.
what I think's going on.
I can certainly agree with that. And I want to make another correlation to Major League Baseball real quick. Whereas guys go out and they pick their bats and they do their thing. Now, if Major League Baseball came in and said, okay, guys, you're all going to use the same bats, much like NASCAR is saying, you're all going to use our air guns. There is something exciting once in a blue moon when you watch a game to see a broken bat single.
Yeah.
Okay? If you see 10 broken bat singles in a game, it loses its luster. It's not exciting. Plus, if those bats are so fragile and you don't get the home run, you don't get the long ball, you don't get those shots to deep right field where you can get a triple out of the deal, the game's going to lose its luster and the game's going to lose its fans.
Right.
Now, you mentioned Kevin Harvick, and again, look, I'm an unabashed Kevin Harvick fan. You can look behind me, you can see all the gimmickry, you can see my shirt, you can see my hat.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily stick up for Kevin Harvick when he's wrong. He's had 3 races where the air gun has caused him penalties or it's
Yeah.
caused, just out and out distress for that team. And lucky for Kevin and lucky for Rodney Childers and lucky for Tony Stewart, they're all, much like me, they're very open and very honest, and they're going to be very pointed when they say this NASCAR mandated air gun thing absolutely 1000% without question sucks.
Yeah.
And when the teams were bringing in their own equipment, they have to be tested by NASCAR.
Yeah.
So the air guns were good. Never had a problem before. Now in 2018, teams are getting penalized because the air guns that they're being given by NASCAR, mandated, this is what you must use, are failing.
Yeah.
Time for NASCAR to pull it back and say, you know what, go back to the way it was. And I know it's that whole, as much as I rallied against it just about 15 minutes ago, rule changes in the middle of the season, this is one that needs to happen. The air guns are a problem. Now, I want to go back to a point you made about the hard hits, and I want to mention Ryan Newman.
Yeah.
Ryan Newman took a hell of a hit. Let's talk about safety. Those safer barriers are fantastic. But
Yeah.
when you go back, if you watch the race, they told a story about how in the offseason they repaved the top groove. They gave them about 33 more feet of racing surface. So
Yeah.
the bottom two grooves are there. That's what a lot of the guys used. Harvick, Busch, Jones, McMurray, Blaney, etc. They all used the bottom two grooves. Those guys that went high were the guys that had problems. New pavement, it scuffs the tires a little harder. You're going to have problems. And
Right.
anytime you saw someone drift up and then come back down, now watch them later on. They get a little squirrely. I watched Hamlin get squirrely and save it until that one wreck.
Yeah.
I watched Kane get squirrely. I watched a lot of these guys who were running pretty decently. Once they got on that high line and they screwed up their tires, they ended up in trouble later in the race. Um, if you're going to repave the top groove, if you're going to expand 33 more feet of racing surface, which, by the way, I think is great,
Yeah.
especially at a place that carries as much speed as Texas, repave the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Give everybody equal footing, because if you're running the bottom two grooves and you don't have room and you want to go to the high side and you go to that new pavement and you hit that little seam that separates the old pavement from the new pavement and it scuffs up your tires just a bit, and that's the only way it's going to happen. If you go from the existing rubberized, there's grip, there's speed, and you go to the new pavement, which is untested, you hit that little lip, tears up your tires, you have a problem. I shuddered. The Larson hit was hard, but when
Yeah.
Ryan Newman hit that wall, I jumped out of my chair and I was
Hmm.
like, oh my God, he's dead. And then I watched the replay. He drops the net and everything's good. Thank
Yeah.
God Ryan Newman is okay. But that was one of the hardest hits I've ever seen at Texas Motor Speedway. One of the hardest hits I've seen ever in the history of ever.
Right.
But again, it was passenger side to the wall. But to watch that car violently bounce off the wall, if that safer barrier wasn't there, we're having a very solemn conversation about Ryan Newman right now.
Yeah.
It's time. It's very much, if you're going to repave a track, repave the whole thing. Congrats to Texas Motor Speedway for expanding the racing surface, because they know if you go into the corner at 207, you need a little bit more room. But to watch the Larson hit and the Newman hit especially, very terrible, very violent, and shouldn't have happened. Absolutely should not have happened.
I'd probably say that the weather down in Texas this past weekend was pretty cold, especially on Saturday. So I think that might have caused like the tires like the pop just a little bit. But actually going back to the air gun situation, the reason why NASCAR was given all these teams like the air gun, excuse me, the air guns that they choose was because they want to save teams money. And you go back to this past year where, NASCAR wanted to mandate teams on using either a spec engine or their own engine, whatever it is, because they want to save money in between. But, you talk about the air gun, it's a really big deal because, you're basically doing like a 14-second pit stop. So it's not only like you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're basically just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Meaning like,
Yep.
you have to like get that car in and out of the pits quickly, so then that auto way you don't lose positions whatsoever. Now, let's say like if NASCAR decides to make a rule change and say like, okay, we'll go back to you guys like doing the pick guns like as well, but we have to like check and see like if they're NASCAR mandatable or so forth, instead of like, asking teams like, whoa, wait a minute, like you spend $2,000 on this, like on the air guns and so forth. I could actually go back to a few years ago when the teams were policing themselves, like whenever they had like a loose wheel or not. And then that was when Tony Stewart came out one time. He said, "Okay, you guys have to come in and police the whole situation before someone gets killed or whatsoever." So not only Stewart got fined for saying that comment whatsoever, but NASCAR went back and said, "Okay, we're going to police you guys, whether you have a loose wheel or not." And then when we go into post race inspection, and if we find that there's only one lug nut that's not on the car, your crew chief's going to be suspended for one race or two, and so forth. But I really think that let's say like if the drivers and the teams voice their opinions on the air guns, it's going to be much louder, and that's where NASCAR is definitely going to jump in and say like, okay, now we need to solve this, and now we need to like figure out what do we do.
Right. Look, how the team decides to spend their money, and I turn my hat around because I'm getting hot. Thank you,
Yeah,
Corey, because
you're
now
welcome.
I'm getting hot. No, you're welcome. Jiminy Christmas. However a team decides to spend their money is the team's choice. Look at teams back in the day. Robert Yates had his own team, okay? If
Yep.
anybody remembers the Robert Yates team with the 88 of Dale Jarrett, or I can't remember. I'm just too hot right now. Oh, God bless
38.
America. The 38 of Elliott Sadler and
Yep.
others. But how you decide to spend your money is one thing. Robert Yates had his own team, but there were teams buying engines from Robert Yates. Why? Because Robert Yates built the absolute best engines in the business. Then Yates retires. I'm not building engines anymore. Who built the best engines? Hendrick.
Yeah.
Are they up to snuff with the Yates engines? Absolutely not. But when Yates retires and doesn't build engines, Hendrick is the premier engine builder on the block. There's a reason why Stuart Haas was buying engines from Hendrick, because they were the best. How
Yeah.
you decide to spend, oh, look, if someone tells me, I make my own money, oh, you shouldn't buy this particular thing, or you shouldn't buy a beer, or you shouldn't buy a koozie, or you shouldn't buy a t-shirt. First of all, unless you're the eternal flame sitting upstairs, you don't tell me how to spend my money. I made it. I'm going to spend it. It's not your decision. It's not up to you to tell me how to live my life. So it's not up
Right.
to you, NASCAR, to tell Hendrick or Gibbs or Stewart how to spend their money. If you find an air gun that's better than the next guy, good. You did right. But it's up to them to catch up to you, not the other way around. Leveling the playing field only makes it worse. Now, you mentioned the air gun. Kevin Harvick got an air gun penalty. And here's one that I thought was the funniest thing ever. And I am going to be I laughed like nobody's business when Kevin Harvick got a too many men over the wall penalty when the guy who was supposed to catch the tire and bring it over the wall fell over
Yeah.
the wall. He did not go over on his own volition. He did not step over that wall. He did not make a conscious effort. He fell. And you're going to penalize this team because he, say it with me, kids, he fell over the wall. Are you kidding me? This is where that gray area in NASCAR comes back to bite you in the butt. And sure, I may have laughed if that happened to the 18 or the 48, because as you guys know, those are the only two drivers I wish would fall into a pool of razor blades and choke on their own blood. But that's another story for another time. I don't wish death on them. Stop. Don't take me seriously on that one. But that was an incident that could not be avoided. He tried to catch a tire, his body weight, etc., the momentum, the inertia took him over the wall. He fell flat on his face. The embarrassment's enough. Let it go. That was a penalty I thought shouldn't have happened. The air gun penalty, I'm going to stick to the rules. It's a NASCAR mandated air gun. And when that lug nut went flying and they couldn't secure that tire correctly, yes, Kevin Harvick and the 4 team, Stuart Haas, earned that penalty. Having the tire catcher fall over the wall, not even close. You're wrong, NASCAR. We, the C+J Speedway Review, are 100% right.
I think they said, I believe they said, and I think I probably watched on Race Hub, I think they missed the tire penalty, where, the uncontrolled tire penalty from what, they were saying on Sunday.
Oh, no, I watched that race. They gigged him.
Okay.
He went to the tail end of the. He had just gotten his lap back. He went to the tail end of the longest line.
Okay.
So, still, he was running third at the time. I'm not making excuses. You know me. He finished second. Fantastic. We'll talk about the top 10 in a minute. Would he have won that race? We will never know. Why?
Right.
Because the circumstances we have to deal with in our life as human beings shows that Kyle Busch won that race. I'm not going to say it's going to change anything. I am going to say that if you look at the last, how many, 6, 7 races there's been this season, Core?
I'd probably say like 7 races right now as we speak. Yep.
How many times has the 4 team been watched like a hawk, with the exception of Daytona, in these 7 races?
I'd probably say they've been watched like maybe I'd probably say after Las Vegas, they've probably been watched maybe the last 3 times, I guess.
Okay, so again, I'm not saying, I am saying the penalty was unwarranted. The over the wall one, inertia, etc. You have a job to do. He didn't jump over that wall on his own. He fell.
Right.
That's something you look at. But if you are someone who jumps over the wall and hopes not to catch, like, oh, we're going to jump over the wall, we're going to try to get an extra advantage, then gig him. Not if a guy falls. That just seems like dirty pool to me. But before I get too much more hot, thank you, Corey. I want to punch you in the mouth right now. Let's go over the top 10 from the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. It's Kyle Busch coming away with the victory in number 1. Kevin Harvick battling back from stupid penalties to finish second, and a great run it was. Jamie McMurray, who had early trouble, came in third. Eric Jones impressed the hell out of everybody, finishing fourth. Another shout out to Sarah Azarju, as her driver Ryan Blaney came in fifth. Joey Logano sixth. Kurt Busch seventh. Bubba Wallace, Loki's favorite driver, came in eighth. Clint Boyer ninth. Another great run by Clint Boyer. And William Byron 10th. Other notables are 11th was Chase Elliott. 13th was Ty Dillon, matching his car number, and you chose him. Don't let me forget. Chris Buescher, I told him we talk about him again. 15th. Matt DiBenedetto with an impressive 16th. I think that was his best finish this year so far.
Oh, absolutely.
And I am not going to go any further because we are about to go into happies and disappointments. Corey, what made you the most happy and what was your disappointment?
I want to say my happy this past Sunday would definitely have to be Bubba Wallace. After finishing second in the 500, hasn't had really good runs the last few races, but I probably say, with the exception of the right pitch strategies that 43 team did on Sunday, brings it home top 10. I was really impressed. And not only that, like I really want to see like a lot more out of this team, and I think Bubba's going to be fun to watch this season. My disappointment would definitely have to be, I want to say, Truex, because he was one of those guys who I think was going to be a contender to win this race. Next thing you know, he slams the wall going off turn 4. When he got the cut tire and so forth. But good thing is he still has that one win. He's in the playoffs, and I still think the 78 team is going to be a one to watch this season.
Yeah, the disappointment of Truex was terrible, and he was running pretty well when that accident happened. I'm going to go a different route. I am definitely going to give my happy to. It's becoming the Sarah Zarju show, kid. If you're watching, have your dad show you this. Ryan Blaney, and I'm going to throw in a 1A. Ryan Blaney and Eric Jones really showed me a lot in this race. Ryan Blaney didn't lead a lap, but he was always in contention. Eric Jones leads 64 laps. So the young guns are for real. The young guns are really coming out. Now, my disappointment, I know everybody's expecting me to say Kevin Harvick, the penalties, the pit crew, etc., so forth. I'm just going to ask you real quick, if you turned this race around, the bottom 5 reads like a top 5 at any other race. Truex, Larson, Johnson, Hamlin, Keselowski. The bottom 5, and again, we're going to go back to Jimmy Johnson. I'm hitting the panic button. I'm not a 48 fan, but it's time for this team to figure out what the ever-loving heck is going on in the garage, the shop, in fabrication, on the track, off the track. Is he smoking meth? Is he, what is he doing? Because this entire 48 team is failing. and
Yep.
failing miserably. So my disappointment, as much as I'd love to say Kevin Harvick, I'm not going to. He finished a strong second, very close to Kyle Busch at the end of this race. My disappointment is the bottom five: Truex, Larson, Johnson, Hamlin, Keselowski. It was a terrible, terrible time to be those five guys, those five contenders at
Yeah.
this race. So now the standings through Texas. Kyle Busch leads the pack with 316 points. Kyle Busch 316 says, "I just won a race." Joey Logano's in second with 278. Ryan Blaney, a very awesome, surprising third, 265. Kevin Harvick fourth with 257. Martin Truex Jr. fifth with 250. Clint Boyer sixth with 249. Brad Keselowski comes home seventh in the standings, 237 and seventh. Kurt Busch continuing his strong run in eighth, 224. Denny Hamlin ninth, 222. Kyle Larson 10th with 202. Notables: Eric Jones 193 and 11th. Let's go down to the showman Alex Bowman 14th, 154. Ryan Newman, who took a very hard hit, is staying in contention. He's at that cutoff point right now at 145. Chase Elliott 18th at 128, and Bubba Wallace 126. Now, let's look at 21st, Jimmy Johnson, 123 points. I could look at the rest of this. I could bring up Jamie McMurray. I could bring up Chris Buescher. I could bring up a lot of guys, but Jimmy Johnson, a 7-time champion, a very disappointing 21st in the standings right now. Are you ready to hit the panic button on Jimmy Johnson?
Well, I'm not ready to hit the panic button just yet, because you go back to the race this past Sunday. Yeah, he started ninth. He had a good qualifying run. He was in contention. Finishing the top 10, top 5 whatsoever, and pretty much he got into a wreck that wasn't his own doing, and he just couldn't avoid whatever car it was and so forth. But I'd probably say that now I'm gonna have to wait and see until like after Charlotte, to see how this team does, because I would say that if this team is not off to a hot start, and if they don't win races after Memorial Day weekend and so forth, then I'm going to be hitting the panic button myself.
Could he pull a Jeremy Mayfield coming down to that last race? I'm not saying cooking math. I'm saying that could he pull that Jeremy Mayfield last race before the playoffs, get that win, get in? Do we want to see a guy like Jimmy Johnson do that?
Well, I probably say, even though Indianapolis is the last race of the cutoff of the regular season, and Jimmy's won at Indianapolis, I want to say 4 times, 5 times, I think. I'm not really sure, but no, I think that I think if they have like the right strategies, or if they decide to run good or whatever it is, and let's say that if he does pull off a Hail Mary winning at Indy and gets himself into the playoffs, I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised at all. And in fact, I'm actually surprised right now that he hasn't won like early at this part of the season, because you look at last year, he won at both Texas and Bristol, which those are the only 2 races that he won until before going to the playoffs, where we haven't heard from him since then. But no, I'd probably say that right now, I think if he wants to win a race, he just has to start contending, laps, and he's got to start leading laps, and he's got to win races, and not to mention he's got to contend with the Stewart Haas Fords and the Gibbs Toyotas and the Furniture Road Toyotas every week, because those are the only teams that have just been dominant so far this season.
Yeah, when you look back at the winner list, it's not with the exception of Kyle and Austin, it's been a Stewart Haas season. And I'm not saying this to be a homer, but you said it earlier. Stewart Haas Racing is the one to watch. But when I look at the standings, and let me get this piece of paper back. When I look at the standings, I see Gibbs at the top. I see Penske underneath that twice. Then I see Stewart Haas. That's Kevin Harvick in fourth. Then you have Furniture Row in fifth, Stewart Haas in sixth, Penske in seventh, Stewart Haas in eighth. You have Gibbs in ninth, and then you have Kyle Larson, which is Ganassi, in 10th. So it's a very mixed bag in that top 10. But again, when you have 3 drivers from Stewart Haas in that in that top 10. You have two Penske drivers in that top 10. There's a lot of room to move.
Right.
But for Jimmy Johnson, you're a 7-time champion. A lot of these tracks that we've already been to, he's been a winner multiple times. I don't know if it's bad luck. I don't know if it's bad chassis. I don't know if it's bad engines. I don't know what it is. But again, I know there's a gentleman down here that lives here, and I'm going to mention his name. His name is Skip Perry. He is a huge Jimmy Johnson fan. I am sure that Skip is pounding that panic button right now like nobody's business because Jimmy Johnson can't seem to find, other than that one top 10 finish, can't seem to find his groove.
Right.
Is it good? If you're a non-Jimmy Johnson fan, it's fantastic. If you are a fan who looks around and says, if the top teams are doing well, and Hendrick is a top team, if the top teams are doing well, then everybody's doing well. Hendrick's not lighting the world on fire. I can look at, let's go back to that top 10. I don't see one Hendrick driver in that top 10. The top performing Hendrick driver right now is in 14th, Alex Bowman. At what point in your life that you've watched NASCAR have you seen 6-7 races into the season, Hendrick being only 14th in the standings? This is a problem.
Oh, it definitely is, and like I said, once Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon, retired and left Hendrick, now you're bringing up a lot of young drivers that are coming in, like William Byron and Alex Bowman. Those guys, it's going to take them time to learn, especially with William Byron, who's pretty much a rookie, and not to mention he got his first career top 10 this past weekend. But I'm looking at the top standings right now, and like I said, I'm pretty much surprised that Alex Bowman's the only Hendrick driver that's in the top 16 as of now. And you look at all the others, Jimmy Johnson's in 21st, and he's only a couple points behind the cutoff. And then William Byron's only like 10 points behind the cutoff. And then you got Chase Elliott, who honestly everybody was expecting him to win, the last 2 years, and he hasn't even found victory lane yet. He's only about a couple points out of the cutoff as well. So you look at it, some of these guys, they're pretty close on getting that cutoff line, but I probably say that now, they just have to start stepping it up because, if you have one bad race, whether you get into an accident or whatever it is and so forth, and, next thing you know, you're slipping all the way down the points, or let's say that, you get an L1 penalty, boom, you lose either 20, 30, maybe 40 points, and now you're like literally outside the cutoff. So at this point, let's say like if it comes down to like 2 races left, or 1 race left, you can't just like you can't have a top 10 finish or a top 5, to make your way in. But, now you just have to win the race. And that's what, Logano tried to do last year, but, he couldn't get it done either. So I probably say that, we're just going to have to take a look and see if any of the Hendrick guys or one of the Hendrick guys will make it into the top 16 this season. And, honestly, like, even if Bowman makes it in, like, I'm not going to be too surprised. But, I really see a lot of expectations out of this kid. He could have won a Daytona, got caught up in a wreck. But I really think that this is going to be a kid that I think will be one to watch.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just going down the list right now, and I may miss somebody, so you're going to have to correct me. Right now, if I'm doing my math right, there's 4 drivers locked in. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Austin Dillon. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah.
Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Austin Dillon. Did I miss anybody?
Let's see. Harvick's in, Truex is in, and no, I don't think you missed anybody else.
Boyer's in, Dillon's in. Okay. So if we're going to go to the Hendrick route, before we talk about Bristol, I'm looking at the cutoff right now. Ryan Newman in 145. William Byron is 10 points behind him. If anybody's going to make that 16 on points, I don't think we're going to have 15 different winners this year. I think this is going to be a really compact year for winners.
Yeah.
And when I say compact, you're going to have 5 wins here, 4 wins there, 3 wins here, 3 wins there. I cannot put my money on anybody but Jimmy Johnson, but based on the performance in these last 6-7 races, I really have to go with Chase Elliott to sneak in on points. And it's not exactly the position you want to be in going into the playoffs because I snuck in on points. We've seen those drivers sneak in, whether Chris Buescher made it 2 years ago on a rain delayed win,
Yeah.
and he made it to the second round, but he didn't exactly light the world on fire and he fell right out. The guys that sneak in do so on luck.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it like that because you're driving your butt off. You're out there. You're competing against the best of the best. When it comes down to it, if I have to put my money on someone, if he doesn't win this season, and I mean the regular season in quotations, Jimmy Johnson's the guy I see sneaking in on points.
I could probably say the same thing too. Depending on how his season goes this year from now until we get to Indianapolis, yeah, I could definitely see this team sneaking it in on points. Like, let's say, like if they don't get a win, but I think that's probably going to change sometime this year.
I'm sure it will. And now we go forward. You have the computer in front of you. Tell us the name of the Xfinity race this Saturday at my favorite all-time track that I've never been to, but I will before I die, Bristol Motor Speedway.
I have one friend that has been there before, and he went to the night race one time. So I want to give him
that guy. I will buy that guy a beer if I ever meet him.
So I want to give a shout out to my good friend Charlie. He's told me that he's been to Bristol and he's been to Dover, he's been to Pocono, he's been to a couple other tracks. But so the race this weekend is the Fitzgerald Glider Kits 300 for the Xfinity Series. It'll be on Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on FS1. And if you guys don't have the race or if you guys are out somewhere, you will have it on PRN, which will be Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. So a couple notables in this race. So in case you guys don't know, this race is going to be a Xfinity Series Dash for Cash.
I'm looking forward to hearing you tell us what this is.
So what this is so last year, NASCAR made a little bit of a minor rule to this because so what this is any of the Cup drivers, right now they're not eligible to run the Dash for Cash races. So you're not going to see Kyle Busch, you're not going to see Keselowski, you're not going to see Ryan Blaney, you're not going to see Logano, you're not going to see Harvick, you're not going to see any Cup guys in this field whatsoever. And this is the one thing I really like that NASCAR has done a really great job on the most. I don't care about the whole standalone races. I really think those are really good too, because the reason why I just don't like seeing the Cup guys perform like every week. Yeah, I mean I really don't mind, but I just don't like them winning too much of the races. And I'm pretty much on the same boat. Let the Xfinity regulars win a race once in a while and so forth. But with NASCAR coming out with this rule with the Dash for Cash, it just gives the regulars an opportunity, to win the Dash for Cash money and whichever the four drivers are going to compete. So moving on, I'm going to read the notables of the guys that are going to be replacing the Cup guys this weekend. So if I can, so correct me if I miss anybody. So sure. Shane Lee is going to make his Xfinity debut this weekend. He was going to drive the number 3 car for Richard Childress Racing. Let's see. Ryan Preece is going to be in the 18 car, and let's not forget he's going to be one of the guys that is going to be running for the Dash for Cash this weekend as well. Austin Cindric is going to be driving the 22 car for Penske, driving the Fitzgerald Glider Kits as well.
Wow.
John Hunter Nemechek is going to be in the 42 car this weekend. And, of course, and I think that's everybody that runs the Cup races this weekend. So other notables you have are pretty much Matt Tiff, Elliott Sadler, Joe Nemechek, John's father, is going to be running the race as well. Ryan
fantastic.
Ryan Truex, Christopher Bell, Daniel Hemrick, and let's see, Spencer Gallagher, Kaz Gralla, Alex Labay, and I want to go to, and also Chase Briscoe. So in case you guys don't know, Chase Briscoe is going to be making his Stewart-Haas Racing Bianchi Di Bensi debut. And like we mentioned last week, Briscoe is going to be running 5 races in the 98 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. So I'm really excited what this kid's going to do. And see how he turns up. And of course, last but not least, Ty Majeski is going to be making his first start of the season in the 60 car for Roush Fenway.
Well, good job, Ty Majeski.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start this party off.
All right.
I looked at the entry list, and I wanted to go a different route because I know that the Dash for Cash is limited to an infinite number of drivers, but my lock is going to be Christopher Bell. When you go back to his win last year, and he ran that race like a dirt race, now you're gonna put them in this bull ring where sliding and speed and braking and all of this dirt track racing. Oh, how do I want to say this? The dirt track racing mindset is very important at Bristol. So in
Yeah.
my mind, Christopher Bell is the guy I think is going to win the Xfinity race at Bristol. My sleeper is Ryan Preece. I think this is a track that plays to his strengths, and I think this is a place where that if he's going to score a victory this year, the first one's going to be here. It's going to be at Bristol, my favorite track that I've never been to, but it's always been my favorite track of all time. This is the place where Ryan Preece is going to show, hey, you know what? I'm for real. I'm a contender. This is why I'm here. So, again, the lock is Bell, the sleeper's Preece. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
So, looking at this entry list the last few days, I'm thinking to myself, it's going to be a Joe Gibbs sweep this weekend. Something tells me about that right now, but I'm actually going to go a little bit around here. So, my lock this weekend is actually going to be Ryan Preece in the 18 car. So,
Wow!
the reason why I say this, go back to Iowa last year.
Yep.
Iowa was pretty much a quarter mile track, and Priest is one of those guys that runs on the quarter miles, the short tracks, the 1 miles, mostly in the modifieds as well. Now you go to Bristol, which is a half mile, and I think he's only ran like a couple modified races at that track before, and he's a short track guy, and I really think, and something tells me, I think that the 18 of Priest, could get his first win on Saturday, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he ends up winning the race, not only winning the race, but also winning the Dash for Cash as well. So I think this is going to be a race where I think Priest is going to be a one to watch, and he should be a one to contend with. My sleeper this weekend is definitely going to be the 3 car Shane Lee. Now
Okay.
he's going to be making his debut in the 3 car, and he's going to be running a minimal race schedule for Richard Childress Racing. And you go to his results, as my computer right now is yelling at me at this point.
Oh, this is why he's the stat guy, ladies and gentlemen. He's the best in the business at
Yes.
stats.
So last year, Shane Lee ran full time in the ARCA Racing Series. He had 8 top 5s, 14 top 10s. He was going to be running a minimal schedule in the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing, whether if it's either in the standalones or in the Xfinity Dash for Cash races, which Cup drivers not eligible and so forth. But from the looks of it, I think Shane is another guy who I think is going to run pretty well on Saturday, because he's probably one of those guys who I think runs really well in the short tracks in between. And I think ARCA has a couple short tracks and one dirt track and whatever it is and so forth. So I think he's also going to be another one who will be fun to watch. But there could be a lot of other guys who I think are going to be one to watch. But I really want to see what Shane Lee can do in that 3 car.
That's fantastic. What a
Yeah.
great pick. Now we move on to the Cup Series. What is the name of the race, and is it 44 billion miles long?
So, getting to the race.
This is why
Again,
he's the best in the business, guys. He just does the work.
So the race on Sunday, we have the Food City 500, which
Oh,
will
it hasn't
be
changed. Thank you.
which will be 2 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. And again, if you are out somewhere, wherever you may be, the race will be on PRN, which will be Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. You go to Bristol. You have guys like that have won at that place. You have guys like Earnhardt, Petty, Gordon, Yarborough, Busch. The list just goes on and on. And
Wallace,
Wallace,
Waltrip.
Wallace, Waltrip. Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those tracks where once you master it, you've mastered it, and you get multiple victories there.
Which, not to mention, Darrell Waltrip has the most wins at Bristol Motor Speedway all time at 12 wins and so forth. So looking at the entry list this weekend, so usually the same old suspects as it is. You got Jamie McMurray. You have Bristol winner Brad Keselowski. You have Bristol winner Kevin Harvick. You have Eric Almirola, who's going to be in the 10 car. You have Bristol winner Denny Hamlin. You have Bristol winner and I believe 5-time winner Kyle Busch. You have Eric Jones, who finished runner-up a year ago when he was driving in the 77. You have Bristol winner Joey Logano. You have Ryan Newman. You have Chris Buescher. Bristol winner Kurt Busch. Bubba Wallace. Bristol winner Jimmy Johnson. Chad Fincham from Knoxville, Tennessee, just not too far up the road. Corey LaJoy. Martin Truex Jr. and Bristol winner Casey Kane.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go in reverse order.
All right.
Because on the Cup Series, we have a hopeful, whereas we don't have that on the lower two series that we talk about. My hopeful is going to be former Bristol winner Kevin Harvick. That's the homer in me. I want to watch Kevin Harvick continue his dominance. And let's be honest, points be damned. Kevin Harvick has dominated this series after Daytona like nobody's business. Take Daytona out of the mix and take the California wreck out of the mix. There's one guy, and I say one guy, who has been dominant in this series, and that's Kevin Harvick. So, for me, that's my hopeful. But part of me says Bristol's one of those places like Daytona, like Talladega, even though it's ridiculously small, where anybody can win anytime, anywhere, any place. So I'm going to put Kevin Harvick as my hopeful. My sleeper, I told you guys weeks ago, every week from here on out until that man crosses the finish line and gets a checkered flag, my hopeful is going to be Chase Elliott because I know this kid has it in him to win a race. This would be a great track. If you can win at Bristol, you can win anywhere.
Yeah.
You can be Derek Cope and win the Daytona 500. You can be Chris Buescher and win at Pocono. You can be Lake Speed and win it wherever the hell Lake Speed won at.
Darlington.
Thank you. You can be one of those guys. But if you win at Bristol, you can win anywhere. So until he actually crosses the start-finish line with a checkered flag for the rest of the season, until he does, my sleeper is Chase Elliott. My lock is going to either please a lot of people or upset a lot of people. But I looked earlier today, and I just looked at the past Bristol winners, and I looked at the margin of victory. I looked at how dominant they were in those races. I looked at the way everything played out. It breaks my heart, and it's going to hurt me to say this. My lock this weekend is Jimmy Effin Johnson. I just think that as I'm hitting the panic button, he is going to step up and step out, and he's going to win this race. As much as it hurts me to say it, Jimmy Johnson is my lock to win at Bristol this weekend.
Really good stuff. Really good stuff.
That hurt. That hurt.
So my lock this weekend, definitely I'm going to have to say Kyle Busch because not only he's a guy that swept the weekend at Bristol twice. I really think that this is going to be a driver who I think is going to be the one to watch on Sunday. And you look at the performance that he had last August. Dominated the race. He was.
Let me ask you a question before you go on. Are you doing what I did a couple weeks ago? And I'm not saying you're mimicking or whatever, but does this have to do with momentum? Because when Kevin Harvick won that first race, the next race I said, Kevin Harvick's my pick, and he won again. And then Kevin Harvick. It's all about momentum. Are you choosing this because of his success at Bristol, or are you choosing this because of the momentum?
I want to say it's because of his success. And you look at how many times he's won there before. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins the race on Sunday. And you look at the performance that he's had right now. Besides winning this past weekend at Texas, he was finishing in the top three the last couple races. And before he won at Texas, I said, okay, this team is close on winning. So it's only a question of when he's going to win a race. Next thing you know, boom, wins at Texas. Now we have to figure out, okay, how many races is he going to rack up, before the start of the playoffs? You go to Bristol, he's won there before. He swept the weekend twice. And I really think that this is going to be a car I think is going to be a one to watch this weekend. Now, my sleeper this weekend, and this one was very easy to choose. I'm going with a guy, ran well last year, could have had a shot to win the race, and if you remember, last August he started on the pole, ended up finishing runner-up, and the guy that I'm picking is going to be the 20 of Eric Jones.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm picking him, he's a short track guy, and the way that he ran at Bristol last year just tells me that okay, once he gets into Joe Gibbs equipment, comparing to Furniture Row and Joe Gibbs, when he ran in the 77 car last year, and he finished second, I thought to myself, that's a really great run, and I was really impressed on that too. So now he's driving the 20 car this year, and now that he's driving in Joe Gibbs equipment, something tells me that this kid is going to win a race, if not maybe two this season. But I really want to see how that 20 car of Eric Jones does on Sunday, and I wouldn't be too surprised if the driver from Byron, Michigan ends up winning on Sunday. Now, am I allowed to pick my hopeful this weekend?
Of course.
All right.
Absolutely.
And my hopeful is going to be an easy one to pick as well.
Don't upset me.
Clint
Don't
Boyer.
upset me. Okay.
Now, reason why I'm picking him, go back to what he did at Martinsville. He ends up winning the race, had a really good car, led 235 laps, 215 laps or so forth. But not only that Clint Boyer won that race, but he's also a guy that runs pretty well in the short tracks. And you go back to Bristol a year ago, I think it was in the spring race, try to catch down Jimmy Johnson right at the end, but he couldn't get there in time. And this is going to be in a car that I think is also going to be a one to watch on Sunday. And I wouldn't be surprised if that 14 car goes 2 wins this season.
Oh, that wouldn't be a bad thing at all, and I think you're right. Um, Look, Bristol is a crapshoot like any other race. There have been
Yeah.
guys that won at Bristol that had no business winning, and there have been guys at Bristol that have won who are, excuse me, oh my lord, that are dominant. No matter what they do, they just seem to have Bristol figured out.
Yeah.
So all of your picks are fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great race. It's both Bristol races are my favorite races of the year. You put them on that small bull ring. You throw 36 to 40 cars out there. Back in the day, it was a 43 car field.
Yeah.
It's always amazing. And let's not forget that it's not always the fastest car that wins. It's the guy that survives Bristol that wins. Because you're going to get bumped, you're going to get banged, you're going to get nudged, you're going to get rubbed. Everything that could actually happen at a racetrack happens at Bristol, which is why it's my favorite race. And I pray that before I die, I get to Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee and actually experience the what do they call it? They call it the Coliseum of racing.
Yep, the last great Coliseum.
Thank you. It's been my dream since 1990 to go to Bristol Motor Speedway, and eventually I'll get there. And when I do, I'm going to throw some live gimmicks up right here on C+J Speedway Review Facebook page. If you're not a fan, go to it now, because we're going to talk about that, why you should be a fan of our Facebook page in just a moment, and our YouTube channel. Quick question before we go. I know we do locks, I know we do sleepers, I know we do hopefuls, but if there's one name that we haven't mentioned going into Bristol that can be a factor, this is the one where, when we do the 2 Bristol races, I definitely want to have a factor. Who's going to be a factor going forward at the Cup race in Bristol?
My factor for Sunday, I'm going to go with the 2 of Keselowski.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, but I want to go back to someone who's won there before and has had bad luck there in the last few years. But Kurt Busch is someone that I could see walking away with the checkered flag at
Yeah.
Bristol. He's always in the hunt. When you look back at the Bristol races, he's never far from being the winner. He's always third, fourth, second, etc. down the line. Kurt Busch is someone that could change the complexion of the race this Sunday at Bristol.
I definitely agree.
All right, Corey, this is the time where you get to plug away. Tell us where we should go, what we should do, and how we should do it.
All right, so Facebook, keep following me on NASCAR IndyCar Central. We post up results, news, whatever's going on in the NASCAR world as we speak. NASCAR can keep continuing to follow me on at NASCAR IndyCar. Twitter, I am at NASCAR Indy. So, like I said, keep following the results, news, and everything, and so forth. And a little bit of IndyCar news. Joseph Newgarden won the race at Phoenix on Saturday night. So, Joseph, if you're still watching this, if you still want to get into NASCAR, we welcome you in open arms. Just make sure you ask the captain if you want to run a limited schedule this year and so forth. I want to give a shout out to Angela and Jim Fleming. So they're really two good friends of mine, and actually, it's funny because Angela is a huge NASCAR fan. She was a fan of Dale Earnhardt Jr., and now that he's retired, she's not sure who her driver is going to be now. So there's a lot of young guys in between, but there's plenty to choose from, and so forth. But yeah, really big NASCAR fans, and I was mostly talking about NASCAR with them for like a couple of minutes and so forth. And I also uh, introduced him to our show. Well, I actually mentioned our show and so forth. So if you guys are watching, we thank you and keep on watching to see a lot of our fun gimmicks on Thursday nights and so forth. And
Oh, is he stealing my shtick? Oh my God!
And then also the prison meeting on Tuesday night went pretty good. We had a really great meeting, so I think we only have like about 3 more to go as we speak. So my next meeting is going to be on Wednesday. So this one's going to be the big one, folks. So chances are, right? And I'm not saying
that Corey's gonna die in prison.
Well, actually,
No, I'm kidding.
well, actually, chances are I might be giving a talk to the guys in prison. Now, talk assignments are going to be on Wednesday, so the guy that's going to be running it, he's going to be assigning whoever gets what on the prison weekend. So guys, if I end up giving a talk on the prison, I will let you guys know. And all I can just tell you is that I'm pretty much going to speak straight from the heart to all the guys, to all the brothers in prison, and you know like I said, it's going to be a really great experience. We got a lot of great guys on our team, and I'm just thinking to myself, once these meetings are over, the prison retreat's going to be here, like before you know it, and I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a fun time.
Absolutely, and whatever you do, whatever you're doing, everything you're doing right now is fantastic. I just I tip my hat to you. I really have to because not a lot of people have it in their heart and their soul to do what you're doing. So, I will continue to heap praise upon you that you're doing the work that, whether you're religious or not, and anybody watching this, whether you're religious or not, Corey really is doing God's work, and thank you for that. And much like I said to Angela, my eternal flame and goddess of love upstairs, when she goes to Haiti and she doesn't want to leave, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you," and all this other gimmickry and schnabitzfirm.com. I'm like, "You're doing God's work. You're doing the right thing, and thank you for going." And I say to you, Corey,
Thank you.
thank you for doing what you're doing. As far as my plugs, it's easy. Go to www.lokiandjabroni.com. Check out the show. It was the birthplace of everything that we're doing right here. You want some great merchandise? Go to www.cafepress.com/Loki and Jabroni. Get yourself a t-shirt, a bumper sticker, a coffee mug, whatever you can. And if you're interested, if you like what you hear here, Did I just do that? Here. That's like I'm butchering the English language as I speak. It's killing me. But if you like what you enjoy here, find the Logan Jabroni Show podcast, and you'll find other hilarity that doesn't have to do with NASCAR that you may enjoy. I want to give a special shout out to Jimmy Wisman, who
Yeah.
I was texting with earlier, who was our guest on the one beautiful third anniversary show. And, you know, Jimmy, you were great. If you ever watch this, you were fantastic. I know I link you to all this stuff and gimmickry and all the whatever, but Jimmy, you were the best, and we all enjoyed it. And I know that producer Eddie Focus is now firmly entrenched in crime and sports, and we're all enjoying it. The latest Small Town Murder, which Jimmy, crime and sports, is Small Town Murder or sister shows. I was laughing my ass off. I texted him on the way home, and that's how the whole text message thing went on. Thank God I have voice to text, because I would have to pull over and tell him all of the stuff that I told him. But Jimmy, thank you again. Uh, keep enjoying what you're doing, and you make podcasting fun for the rest of us, as if what we do here and what we do on Tuesday nights here at the Logan Jabroni Show, you know, it's a labor of love, and everything we do, you get for free. So remember that when you're like, oh, well, I don't know. We're giving this to you for the grand total of free. One last shout out before we close out. I want to give a special shout out to Nine Line Apparel. If you have never seen their shirts, they're fantastic. If you're a patriot, if you love this country, if you are tired of snowflakery and nickery and BS, then ninelineapparel.com is the place you need to go and buy t-shirts. I met with a gentleman named Sean a couple weeks ago, and I'm desperately trying to get Sean to sponsor these shows. So you guys can get great apparel, and we can get much needed fundage to continue these shows as we do every single week and prove that the American dream is not dead. Don't
Right.
let the snowflakes run your life. Don't let people tell you how to live your life. We all like what we like. There
Yep.
are people that are going to tell you, don't like NASCAR, it's a bunch of idiot rednecks turning left. No, you're misinformed. AR-15s are assault rifles. No, if you ever went to war with an AR-15, you get shot in about 30 seconds. It's not an assault rifle. If you support Donald Trump, who, by the way, I didn't vote for, if you support Donald Trump, you're a Nazi. No. Stop trying to tell people how to live their lives. And that's what Nine Line Apparel is trying to do. It's just trying to get people to open up their stream of consciousness and understand that there are people that fought and died for your right to do things. And I'm not saying that every person who's ever done the military path is righteous and good, but the majority of them are. And I want you guys to remember that the fact that we live in the greatest country in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we are allowed to sit here for an hour and change on Wednesday, Thursday, whenever Corey's available, we have this right to spew our hatred and our love and etc. And what we do on the Logan Jabroni Show to spew our love and our hatred, etc., was founded by people who fought and died for your right to do that. And I'm just thankful for all of those people, whether you ever saw war or you didn't see war. And what if you put on that uniform, guess what? You're a vet. And I thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. And that allows us to keep going because we live in the greatest country on earth.
Amen to that.
All right, so for Corey, my name is Chris. We'll see you next week, breaking down Bristol and going over the next race, which is, Corey?
I believe the next race would be Richmond.
How do you believe? You should have this. You're the stat guy.
I'm the stat guy. I mean, I know that the next race is going to be, well, actually, it's funny because I know after Bristol, we got Richmond, and then, the end of April, we got Talladega coming up, which is one of my favorite racetracks. And,
Oh,
you
amen.
know, in Talladega, I cannot wait, just have to see how that goes. And, now that you think about it, next month we got May, and, Memorial Day weekend is right around the corner. So it's going to be fun.
Bring it on. It's going to be the best. Next 6 weeks are going to be the best
Oh, yeah.
for this show and for you guys at home watching, especially Talladega, because that's the biggest crapshoot in NASCAR.
And it's actually funny because so when I'm on the Prism retreat, that's actually going to be on the weekend when NASCAR goes to Kansas. So not going to be able to catch the trucks or the Cup race that weekend, but I'll try and keep myself updated like after I get out of the prison because of course I'm not allowed to have my cell phone in there, so that's going to be turned off inside my car. So if anybody wants to get a hold of me but are unable to, I will make sure to check messages when I get out.
You know what's funny? If there were a NASCAR network where you could stream things after the fact, much like WWE, you'd be fully ingratiated when we do this after you get out of prison. Oh, that sounds so terrible. But
Right.
after you get out of prison, oh my God, I keep saying it like that. When you're done with your mission work,
Well, the mission work, yeah.
if you had a NASCAR live streaming network like the WWE, you could watch these races before you get here.
Exactly.
Today, NASCAR, make it happen. My name's Chris. His name's Corey. We'll see you guys next week.
Good night.